Prosperity in Black America. What will this require? Is Black business prospering? Are we reaching women and minority-owned businesses? How do we achieve earning parity for wealth for our families? Do our children really have access to education? Will our families have choices for our children? Prison pipelines, mass incarceration, tearing our families apart. A healthcare system not accessible to the masses. The disproportionate termination of Black women from corporate America. When will we actually begin to address what's really at play? How do Black people gain more power to help make these changes? This requires a lot of political will and courage. I'm that provocateur of change. I am Cindi Bright. Welcome to HeartBeat.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to HeartBeat. I'm your host, Cindi Bright. Thank you for joining us again this evening. We're excited to have you here. Every week, we are having conversations on and talking about kind of the latest and greatest on what's going on in the political world. And this week, it's just been something in the news, right? There isn't a dull moment. But for this week, I wanted to have a conversation this evening about what took place with President Barack Obama and his comments that he made in the Black community regarding Black men and getting out the vote. Joining me this evening is my co-host, Erin Jones, who is joining with me here. I see she just came on. And then we have a really special guest who I'll introduce in just a minute to have this conversation with us. So let me bring Erin in. Hi, Erin. I'm glad you got on. Nate was having challenges with his technology too initially. So it looks like you got everything okay.
Yep, I am in.
Good. Well, I was just introducing the show this evening before we introduce Nate in, and just going to talk this evening about what we've been talking about on text message the last few days and what's all over the news, which is it's been something watching the commentary that has come out about President Barack Obama and his comments about Black men. And I think before you and I get into our views on it, let's just introduce our guest and bring him in, and let's just have a dialogue together about how we feel or what has taken place with that. So we want to introduce in the Seattle community. Many people know him. He's just just as a human being, a wonderful human being who has spent his entire career doing a lot of work at the national and local levels, both with Urban League, with NAACP. He's been an absolute mentor. He has helped me a lot. He has done a lot in the political world, helping candidates get elected into office. I have so many good things to say about him. Let me just bring him in to have the conversation with Erin and I. So let's welcome in Nate Miles.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, ladies. Hey, Erin Jones.
Hey, Nate Miles.
I haven't seen you in a while, girl. They said you were running a little late. I was going to have to go find you. But I'm glad you're here. Cindi, it's always good to see you. Thank you guys for having me tonight.
Yeah, we're just so happy that you're here to talk with us. And we talk every week about a whole lot of things. We focus a lot on issues with Black women. And we thought, well, since we're talking about Black men tonight, let's invite one of the prestigious ones we have here in the Seattle area to come in and talk with us. So we just kind of wanted to hear some thoughts from you about, what your thinking is from hearing President Barack Obama and how you heard his comments, and maybe give us some reaction to what you're hearing in the community about those comments.
Well, first of all, thank you. First, giving honor to God, who's the head of my life. I want to really appreciate being here. And I'm glad that you had one of the bros here with you tonight. And as it relates to President Obama and some of the things that he says, I just want to say really right up front, because this really started out when they were starting to talk about Black men not supporting a Black woman, and could this be the thing that cost her the election, et cetera, et cetera. I just want to say one thing right up front. Pay attention to other people, because the other people have lost elections. And I don't want to point fingers at any groups of women, et cetera, but it hasn't been the Black men that have cost elections in other elections. I just want to say that right up front. And also the polls show that the only people that are as supportive of Kamala Harris, the most supportive people of Kamala Harris in the polls, number 2, are Black men, second only to Black women. So as Big Mama used to say, let's be clear where the support. Let's be clear where this support is going to come from. The support is going to come from Black men, and we want every Black woman out there to know we got your back, because we know what it's going to take to get through this thing. So we are out there and we got your back. So regardless of what the media tries to say and the rift that they try to pull between us, there's not going to be a rift in this thing, because we understand at the end of the day what's at stake in this race. And if it happen, it's going to happen with us pulling together and trying to make and bring some other people along with us. Okay. And what President Obama said, I think he was trying to drive home a point. Now, did some people get offended by what he said? Maybe they got offended, but maybe it hurt the way that he said it. Maybe he could have said it a little bit different, and maybe some of them were thinking through what they were going to do. But I don't think that in listening to it, and I listened to it, I think that he hit some people where it might have hurt. But but I don't think it was anything that he said in that that really should have hurt, if they were truly out to support this vice president in her run for it, because he was nailing some points that were right there. And if you look at what the vice president and President Biden have done in their deal, they've achieved the lowest unemployment rate on record. Black men, especially in that, have never seen some of these unemployment rates that they have. They've reduced Black child poverty rates by more than 12%, getting our children's poverty rates down. If you can raise a Black child and not in the poverty rates, Erin, you know this because you're in early childhood education. If you can send a kid to school who has his belly full in the morning and be able to go home and have somebody that can take care of them and make sure they're not going home to poverty, they've got a chance to make it. If you can create business, because Black businesses have been created in the largest small-owned Black businesses in over 25 years, these guys have created. Every brother and sister that you see today, whether it's a beauty parlor, a barbershop, you name it, that they're starting out, that they're going into now that Microsoft and these guys are offering opportunities to go into and to partner with. Largest in 25 years under Joe Biden and these guys, this new green economy that's going on. Everybody has a shot to go in and get this thing going. So I don't think that Black men and women who've had these opportunities now are just going to throw Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to the wind and say, we don't care about you guys. So I think the media trying to say, oh, it's going to be a Black men and Black men aren't going to vote for Kamala Harris. They know where this thing is coming from, especially if any of them have gone to any of these HBCUs, because they're putting big money into the HBCUs, and that's where they're getting their educations from, either undergrad or graduate school.
I think, thank you for saying that, Nate. I think a couple things, and I'm going to turn to Erin here in just a second. I think, first off, we are very candid here on HeartBeat. So we will point blank say that you were very much referring to the amount of white women that are voting and putting Donald Trump into office. And so that has been historically his voting base and the people that we have to be concerned with about who's going to potentially compromise Vice President Harris coming into office. I do want to ask or pose the question, or let's talk about it. Was there some validity to the concerns that Barack Obama raised about historical support of Black women when it comes to anything. Like in this case, this is political. But is there some validity to why he would feel that he needed to raise that issue amongst Black men and in the Black community? Erin, did you have some thoughts? I know we were talking a little bit about it. I thought, would you like to comment about that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I would say is, my husband was a minister in a Black Baptist church back in South Bend, Indiana for a while. And I saw some misogyny at play there. But I think it's no more at play in the Black church than it is in the white church. I mean, I found out after we left our most recent church that people would not show up to church if Erin was speaking from the stage in our predominantly white evangelical church. So I think misogyny and kind of the patriarchy is real. It's real. And so I think there's a segment of men, period, Black men, white men, Asian men, Latino men, Indigenous men who just are not ready to have a woman leader, period. I don't know that I don't believe there's a larger percentage of Black men that feel that way than the white community. I just don't think there is. I also suspect, because I've been watching a lot of social media, I also suspect that social media is elevating the voices of the pro-Trump Black men intentionally to sow division. I really, the more I actually talk to Black men that I know, so I was on a talk show with Shamari Jones, who works for Bellevue School District, and we talked about this. And I think there's a very intentional way the Republican Party is paying, incentivizing Black folks, women and men, but in particular right now, Black men, to get on social media and to share messages. And I think that to me feels so gross. And it's not surprising. I mean, Candace Owens has been owned by the Republican Party, by conservative people for a long time. And I think sometimes people are motivated by compensation, and it's a sad thing, but I think it's very real. And if you can put a wedge between us, then, I mean, when Black men and women are together, I think about my husband and I, when we're together, like, we're a force to be reckoned with, right? And so I think there is very intentional effort right now to put a wedge between us. And I think we need to not fall for it. And to also, back to Nate's point at the beginning, and I'll just say this too, because I've spent a lot of time talking to white women. I tagged you, Cindi, in a video, or somebody made a comment to the extent that, why are white women not getting the same critique as Black men are getting? So why is it that we demonize Black men when really there aren't enough Black men to sway the vote anyway? So let's say that every Black man voted for Trump. There's not enough Black men to sway the vote in the same way that white women can sway the vote. And so, why is it that white women get a pass and Black men become demonized? So, I mean, it's a really great point. And I take that one to heart. I have 2 Black boys and a Black husband, and Black men. I have 2 Black, they're always going to be my boys, but they're grown adults now. And they're voting for Kamala Harris for sure. I mean, for them, it's like voting for their mom. So they look at her and they're like, she's just a little version of you, Mom.
Do either of you feel that, when I guess, when I heard Barack Obama make the comment, I heard it more as he was being more of a mentor to
an elder.
An elder. That's exactly how I heard it. I think I posted that on so I didn't hear it in a negative light the way that it got interpreted. And so there's been a lot of backlash towards President Obama for saying those things. But I feel, Nate, you're an elder in the community. Like, you talk to younger men and women. I mean, you've mentored me. I don't know if you remember some of the things you helped me.
He helped
my
me too.
campaign.
He was one of my Black dads when I was at OSPI. So I'm gonna own that too.
Well, I think that, to your point, especially when it comes to the white women, I won't point fingers at the white women, because we have a lot of the Asians that can do that. They're now talking a lot about the Hispanics that are going down in Florida, who aren't going the way that they aren't. So I don't think that there is particular group of people, but I think it's when you add this slice of the pie and that slice of the pie and that slice of the pie, something about people of color. And I don't mean to put them all in the same thing, but it's like when, as my uncle used to say, it's like these people look at things as if somebody else's water freezes and it's colder. Their ice is colder when all water freezes at 32 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like our ice freezes at 32 degrees too. And so when it comes to Barack Obama, you have to really listen to Obama, because Obama taught me something, because I really got mad at Obama. We were in a meeting one time and he said something. We were all sitting around when he first got elected. And he said something, and I thought that he really just didn't care about Black people. And because they were saying, we need this and we need that and we need this and we need that. And Obama said, well, then make me do it. And everybody went out there and was like, well, what do you mean, make me do it? You know, because you ought to be wanting to do it. You're a Black man. You came out of Jeremiah Wright's church. You came out of Chicago. You know how bad Black folks need stuff. Come on, man. What do you mean, make me do it? I went home, Cindi and Erin, and I thought about it. And what he meant was, he was very smart about this. He said, make me do it. And think about that. What he was saying is, if he just went out and the only people that he worked for was Black folks, the first thing they would do is say, the only people you're helping is Black folks. But see, if he helped Black folks after they did this and said, we want this, he could say to them, to his white staff and the white America, he could say, I have to do it because they're making me do it.
Yeah.
They're part of my constituency and I have to do it. They're making me do it. I said, oh, that's what he meant. Make me do it. He's not demanding you to make him do it. He's giving you the direction.
He's inviting you.
He's telling you how to get it done. Make me do it. So that if you demand him to do it and he does it. And so I take this when he said, Black men, y'all need to get out there and support her. Many Black guys, and I'm gonna just tell you, me, my brother, some of my nieces or some of my nephews and so forth. One of the best ways to get a Black man to do something is tell him he can. I'm just telling you. I'm not saying that it's the best way to get done, but how many Black men do you know? And I know if you guys think hard enough, it might be your cousin, it might be your uncle, it might be your nephew, but have heard these words. I did it because they told me I couldn't. Okay. Mm-hmm. They might actually get out in the street and go help Kamala now. They might get out there and go knock on some doors because they told me I couldn't.
Well, it's
a bad way. It's a bad way to operate. But if that's the way they're going to move, whatever motivates them to get out there in the street and go knock on some doors. And he was telling them, I'm going to go do it because I'm pissed at Obama. He should have never told me that. I think that there will be more people that will get out there and do stuff now because they're mad at it. I'm going to show him we can go get some people rounded up to go out here and get some votes. I hope that's the way it winds up.
Well, let me ask this, or let me pose this. Two things. One, I would ask, do you think that there is a difference generationally between Black men's support of Black women? And then maybe another question about that, when the optics or perspective of many Black women is that we don't have a basis of support from our Black men. And I think I think there's probably data that shows that, right? There is a gap between how much a Black woman will take on and do versus having the support of the brothers out in the community to help us do A, B, and C. So, was Barack Obama, I hear the rain coming down really hard right now, was Barack Obama getting at that issue as well? Because I think I'm not the only Black woman who would say that. And then is there a whole generational issue to that? I mean, I don't know the answer to that question about it, the 40 and under, do they even vote? I mean, I don't know. So I'm just throwing those two issues out there to see what you think about
So
those two.
obviously I'm just one Black woman, but I will tell you, I'm married to a Black man who's my biggest cheerleader. And I have 2 Black sons who are my biggest cheerleaders. But I also have people like Rashad Norris. And I mean, I can list the number of Black men. I've been really fortunate. I see myself as really, really fortunate. I mean, I think about when I was at OSPI, just Nate showed up for me. If I ever needed anything, Nate was there. I think about Kevin Washington, who continues to show up in my classroom every stinking week. Unless his partner is sick, Kevin Washington is long retired, and he shows up in my classroom every single week for me. So I feel like I've been really, really lucky. I have a bunch of like dad figures that are 60 and over. And then because I taught so many young Black men and I was their coach, there's a whole crew of young Black men who are between 20 and 35 that I taught. And because I was their teacher, like they are sold out to Black women. So I think it really depends on who you are. I know that I'm really blessed though. I know that I'm really blessed to have some really amazing Black men. I mean, Jesse Jones is my brother-in-law. And if I ever needed anything from Jesse, I know that he would show up to it and for it. So I feel really fortunate. I know it's not true for all of my sisters, but for me, I have been really blessed to have amazing Black men. I have a Black dad in every city that I've ever lived. There's an older Black man who just adopted me into his family, every single city I've ever lived in. And I just feel really fortunate that way.
And when it comes to some of the younger brothers, I think, honestly, Cindi and Erin, I think if it hasn't been, I think it's going to be, because when you start getting into that younger generation, they think so much different than the older guard. Their mind is just, I mean, they just think differently. They don't value the same things. They don't discriminate the same way. They don't, while some of the old people might be, well, are they trans? Are they blah? Are they blah? Are they blah? They're just, that's Willie. It's, that's Erin. That's Cindi. That's Nate. That's, now the rest of it, now you may have to tell them later on what you are or how you identify or do you identify right up. But right off the bat, they're like, hey, Cindi, let's go grab some lunch, let's go chop it up. Their first deal is, want to go chop it up? Their deal that they're just different. So would you vote for me? They're going to first hear what you got to say, oh, okay. So you're talking about building the firehouse down here. Oh, okay. So you're talking about, oh, okay. That's it. I got no problem with that. So I think the younger generation, if you ask about the younger generation, I would say the chances of them being more reluctant to vote is not there. I think that it's not being, it is not there. Now, as you move up there in age, I think you probably start getting there. That's why I'd like to see that poll when they keep saying, oh, the polls show that the Black men are doing it. I'd like to see that poll, because I think that they got a number and they're trying to paint with a broad brush, which is why some of those young brothers in that meeting with Obama got mad, because they said that might be them, but that's not me.
Well, there's also the perspective that when Vice President Harris was the Attorney General in San Francisco, that she locked up more Black people than she helped. And so I've heard, Black men comment or refer negatively about her because of that, because that's their perception of what took place when she was an Attorney General. Now, she's been working hard on the circuit to clear that up in her campaign, but I've certainly heard those comments about her. And last week I attended. Were you at the Bird Bar fundraiser last week where Angela Davis was there. By any chance?
No, I was in Singapore. I missed that one.
So it was interesting for me to even hear her speak about Barack Obama. I was actually a little taken back by it because the way I heard her talk about him was, kind of what you said a few minutes ago, Nate, about, like what's he done for Black people lately. And so that kind of took me off guard because to your point about, make me do it. Well, he can't fix everything for the entire Black community. He's the first Black person to be elected. And so, I understand that more, I think, because I've had to walk on, corporate eggshells, as is you coming out of corporate America, about how you manage change and how you drive change forward. It's just interesting trying to change perspectives. And I certainly hope that's why we wanted to talk about it, that we have generations of people that are not getting hung up or caught up in non-supporting of Black people who are getting elected into power. Now, what we're hoping is when she is elected, that she has a Senate and a Congress, right, that support her, because then she'll be held to a standard that Barack Obama faced, which is he didn't have a Congress that would move things in his direction the way he wanted to. So,
and I think that's when I was talking on Shamari's show today. That's the thing that I mentioned is I think far too many Americans don't understand the three branches of government, and so are very unclear about the role of the executive versus the role of the legislative versus the role of the judiciary. And so the thing I've been telling my Black friends is, yes, I want you to vote for Kamala, but I also need you to vote for your senator. I also need you to vote for your governor. I need you to vote for your secretary of state. You need to vote all the way down the ballot, because the things that Kamala wants to do, she can't do if it's just her. It can't be by executive order. But I think so many, and I watched this with Obama when he got elected. The very first day, the Speaker of the House, who was a Republican, said, we're just going to say no to everything that he puts forward. I mean, he was very explicit that very first day that Obama was in office. And so, I've heard lots of Black people who are really disappointed in President Obama. But if we don't send her with the right support, she can't do all the things that she says that she wants to do that we all need. And so we have to do our part. Like, our part is to make sure we elect people to support her. Because otherwise, I mean, I think about all the conversations, Cindi, you and I have had, is there's nothing worse than being a Black woman put in a position of authority in the C-suite or as an executive, and then you're just left alone. And then
did you happen to catch, did either of you happen to catch some of the snippets of Vice President's conversation with Fox News today?
I did. Oh yeah, she didn't back down a pound.
She did not, but she was also the disrespect. She couldn't even finish her sentences. Like the standards of which, the abuse of which she, as a Black woman, like, why is she the only one? Why is she the only one on Fox News? Why is she the only one on 60 Minutes? Why is she the only one fighting, trying to deal with the immigration policy that Donald Trump pulled back, made sure that the Republicans were not going to vote for anything? So, the abuse, and she handled it well. But, as to your point, she have to be made of steel in order, and takes so much disrespect in order to just try to have a conversation, let alone progress an agenda that supports an opportunity economy that she is aiming to do, which we know what that is going to entail, right? We can read the tea leaves around who the people are in this society who have invested in ourselves, in our education, in our work experiences, in our life experiences. Those are going to create opportunities. And when she has the power to make those changes, that is going to create a whole nother upheaval. So, it's just fascinating to watch. Even, did you catch the Ted Cruz and Colin Allred debate?
One of the things that we also got to do is to make sure that when people say stuff that we have to fact check just about everything that comes out, because one of the things that came out, and I just wanted to make sure that we stay on it, because we all don't know how many people are watching us or listening to us tonight, but it continues to go around. One of the reasons why young Black men are mad at Kamala Harris is because she put so many people, so many young brothers in jail when she was in California. It's not true. Not true. But if they didn't get the facts on it, FAX, go get the facts on it, because that's not true, is that she was not the chief person that put people in jail. She went and she actually even tried to get weed legalized down there so that people wouldn't go to jail so much in doing that. Number two, that they ought to talk about the fact that they then appointed more Black judges that reflect the diversity of America than anybody else in there. And it is it's just unbelievable that she doesn't get credit for that. So I just want to make sure that that's on there too. Can you guys give me 1 minute? Can you take me out for just a minute? I just got to plug in my deal so it doesn't die. Okay, thanks. Hold on.
Yeah, that was really, those are really interesting comments he's making. I did catch did you see it, Erin, the Fox?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I didn't see Fox News. I saw the Colin Allred, Ted Cruz interview. That was just wild.
Just wild. Mm-hmm.
But here's what I said that I know you'll appreciate. With Shamari this afternoon, he asked if there were two things that you would recommend to Kamala Harris coming out of the gate. So when she gets elected, what are two things you'd recommend? I said, number one, I would have a crew of sisters that is just on call, that you are connecting with at least once a week for half an hour, to just get lifted up by some sisters and be able to share, maybe not specifics, but just have people that you know are your sisters that have your back, that will hold you when things get really hard. I wish when I was an executive, I had that. I wish I'd had the foresight to have a crew of sisters. The other thing that I told Shamari is I would love to see her develop some sort of I had a dream team when I was at OSPI, and it was people from different minoritized communities. So I had Indigenous people, I had nonprofit organizations that were serving Black and brown children and refugee children. And once a quarter, they met with me at OSPI, and they made sure that I stayed close to the ground, because you can't be everywhere. But I knew I needed. Yeah,
I think that's what she's. I think that's what she's doing. Nate doesn't know this. I think I told you, Erin, but I was recently inducted to the Seattle chapter of the 100 Black Women. And so she's set up these chapters across the country to be able to help her for exactly what you're talking about, the sisters that need to help her be the hands and feet and help her get shit done, because and to support, because, we know what she's up against. And I can't wait to see what the down ballot is going to bring with some of these Senate seats, and see what what basis of support she has, because that'll be pretty predictable. Nate, I don't want to hold you much longer.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Okay. This is me. I'm a politics. You didn't got me going now, especially you talking about this woman. I'm so I've been writing stuff for, helping writing speeches and all of this, because the thing of it is I think that if she goes into this deal, and if she fights back in this deal, that she will win in this deal. And I think there's a piece to this that when we start talking in this country, that I think one of the secrets in this deal, because Trump is coming out and he's hitting her. I think that one of the things that all men, you can say what you want to, but they look at, and is she going to fight back? Is she going to be, how they always say, fight like a man, come in there and do this. And they look at some of that stuff and they go, is she strong enough? And here's the possible misogynistic piece that I have. Is she strong enough to stand on a stage and fight with Putin and all of these guys? She has a fairly soft voice. She doesn't really, say that rotten bastard. She doesn't cuss out in public, and get with it and all of that. So Now that might be a misogynistic piece where they say, well, I don't think she can do it because she's not doing this. But if you would have saw her tonight on this interview tonight, this guy was trying to come at her and she was going toe to toe with him. You walk away from there saying, I don't care, Putin or nobody. She was throwing it back. Now, some people might say no woman should be, hey, but I'm going to tell you like this. She was throwing, which is about time. Because like when Trump was standing there on that stage, I would have hit him with a little bit more. You know, you have to show what you can do because guys are like that. Guys are just guys, you know, and they're not flashy. They're not all of that. And if they're not learning all of this and coming through with all of this stuff and knowing all of this stuff, they just kind of go, you know, women are the soft and the classy people. You know, guys aren't that classy in coming through this deal. You know, look at Michelle and look at Barack. Who do you want if you wanted to have somebody? Everybody knows Michelle is the one that's got the book and it's got the deal. Now, and that ain't saying Barack ain't smooth, because nobody has ever had a smoother picture than that picture when Barack got out of that car on the cover of Ebony magazine. I don't care what you say. You tell me the epitome of cool was when and I thought Marvin Gaye had it. When he got out of that cover of Ebony magazine, getting out that car, that was for me. I fell out.
Michelle, you know, Michelle does a really. I mean, we all know as Black folks, right? Like, I mean, you can just see it, and I saw it in Vice President Harris tonight. Like I thought she was much more. She's being labeled as being aggressive because he kept interrupting her, and she kept saying, "Can I finish my sentence? I'm trying to answer your question. Like I'm trying to get. I understand what you're saying, but I'm trying to get the answer." So she was very respectful to him, and then was labeled, as we all are, as aggressive Black women, and so that's the only thing that they have on her.
That's that tension. Right? That's that tension for us as women is at time. I mean, it's almost, you can either be labeled the B word like Clinton was, right? So if you're too aggressive, but if you're not aggressive enough, you're too girly, you're not strong enough to lead. I mean, it's that tension that we are constantly having to play on, that tight wire.
Yes.
Right. Or you can wait on or you can wait on them and go, hey, okay. Now you done? Yeah, you done? Because watch how JD Vance was doing when he had Tim. How he had Tim. What's his name? Tim Walz.
Yeah.
JD Vance did it like a woman, but he would do after Tim Walz would introduce him. He got done. He goes, "You done?" Okay, because you done. Because now I'm gonna do you. See, that's where you can do where a woman could really do you. You done? Yeah, bam. And then hit him with what you want to hit him with. You done? Okay, I want to make sure you're done because I don't want to interrupt you and say, bam, and then hit him. And that's why everybody thought Tim Walz, that JD Vance did, because wow, he was being really polite. He was being really kind. He was putting on a show.
He was slimy.
Yeah, just putting on a show. But in terms of getting past all of this, I do hope we get past all of it. I know we're going to get past all of this because in the end, Erin, you hit it right on the money. And just like I said, when we work together, I've been married 38 years. There's nothing like when we work together as a team. We're just like that.
Yeah.
We're just like that. When we pull apart and get like that, there's no winning in that. This is what has kept us together as a community. This is what has kept us together as a family. This is why so many people try to stop it. I always can't remember the movie, but what was the movie that the older lady said? When we're apart together like this, they can break off each finger, but when you put all 5 of them together, we can strike a mighty blow. I can never remember that movie where the that old black woman, she said, but when you put them all 5 together, you can strike a mighty blow. And that's what we can do as a community. That's what we can do as a country. If this country comes together, every country in the world knows, not the Black country. Every country in the world knows that this country, and they're looking at Kamala Harris knowing that she can pull this country back together. because it needs to be pulled together. And she's the one that can pull it together. Women for Harris, Black women for Harris, old dudes for Harris, Mexicans for Harris. She's the only one that ever pulled those kind of people together.
Republicans for Harris. You see all the Republicans that are out for her now too? Like, that's a first.
That's a first. That's what they're scared of. Because if she pull all of them together, the American family gets back together, and we have American family reunion, and she pulls it back together, forget about it. She got this thing won. That's what they need to talk about, because she's got it.
I hope that's right. You know, I hope that's right. I mean, everything says yes.
He sits high and he looks low. This is his. This is his. This is his. It ain't nothing to do with what these guys can do. He didn't bring us, I don't believe he brought us this far to leave us. And so but I will leave you tonight. Thank you, Miss Cindi, for having me on tonight.
Okay,
thank
Nate,
you, Miss Jones. It was great to see you.
Yeah,
you guys have the rest of your show. You absolutely welcome. Anytime, just call me and I will be there. Take good care, you two ladies.
Nate. Okay, thank you.
All righty. Take care now.
Okay. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I'm going to do a quick commercial break, and then we'll be right back. We've got our other co-host in the back room here. So let me just do a quick commercial, and we'll be right back. You can go ahead and just exit Nate. There you go. Okay, he's got it.
I'm Patty Cooterer, running for State Insurance Commissioner. When my daughter was born critically ill, I had to fight my insurance company for life-saving care. Now I'm dedicated to ensuring that no family faces that trauma, whether it's healthcare, home, or pet insurance. The commissioner oversees it all in Washington. I'll bring transparency, fairness, and work to lower costs. Vote for me, and I'll fight for you.
Paid for by Patty for Washington.
Well, I was so glad to have him on, Erin. I hadn't seen him in quite a while. We've got our other co-host, Stefani Coverson, in the back. So let me just bring Stefani in. Hey, Steph. Let's see if we can hear you. I cannot hear you.
Uh-oh.
Try again, Steph. Can we hear you?
There. What about now?
Okay, yeah, we can hear you there. I saw when you signed on, so you were able to catch a few minutes of the conversation with Nate. What are your thoughts about what's been going on this past week with all of the Barack Obama? Give us your thoughts about how the week's been. I haven't seen you in a week.
So I think Vice President Harris has done an amazing job. I think showing her grit. I wouldn't call her soft-spoken at all. I think that she has been direct. I think that she is trying to meet people where they are at. And so, I mean, I think people have at this point made up their minds. I mean, we're so close to the election. Like, I think that people are not really saying, and that's your right not to, because otherwise we would post our vote on Facebook, right? So you have the right not to say who you're voting for. I think the thing that I will say about the conversations around Black men and who Black men are voting for, I mean, from my personal perspective, like, absolutely side eye if you are choosing to vote for Donald Trump. However, Black men behind Black women are the ones that show up religiously, like the largest blocks of folks that show up religiously for the Democratic Party. And I think that, like, this focus on what Black men are doing takes the focus off of, like, white men and white women.
Yeah, we had talked about that.
Consistently vote against their own interests.
Yeah, we that was like out of the gate what Nate started talking about. Yeah, I agree. Well, we are 20 days. It's almost midnight, or midnight on the East Coast. So we're 19 days. We're in the teens now from this election. So I do see uh, is she even getting any sleep? I mean, she's definitely everywhere right now, making sure she's getting her voice and her messages out. And so I'm happy to see that while Trump was dancing at a thing. He clearly doesn't have to do any work. I mean, isn't that typical? Yeah. And did just all the people that were dancing with him. I mean, he's just never going to be held accountable. So I'm hopeful about the battleground states that we have enough. It seems that we do. And to your point, Steph, I want to say I think that a lot of that information is just being held back so that we can get this election over the finish line. That is my prayer and hope that that's what's going on.
Did you hear that Donald Trump's ground game is being managed by Elon Musk's PAC?
I just heard that today.
And it is imploding. It's imploding. Because, yeah, so he is an erratic leader.
He's messy.
Like,
he's so messy.
He's your BFF. He loves you one day. The next day you're fired. So they've been doing all of that kind of stuff. They still have vacancies open for canvassing. So I suspect they are going to ramp up the dis and misinformation because they don't have a ground game in any of these battleground states. And particularly in Michigan, there's a Republican state representative that was taking out ads in Black newspapers to remind people to go out and vote on November 6th.
One of my friends I had met yesterday, and we were catching up. I hadn't seen her in a minute, and she was telling me she's white. She was telling me her son. She was just blown away that because her boyfriend is in the intelligence space, and she said that her sons are being targeted. And she said, I don't even know what has created the algorithm to go at them, but they are feeding these young white boys this information that she said, she's got all these filters set up. She said, I know my son is not on these websites and he's not doing these things, but they have a way. And so she's been asking the boyfriend, how is this happening? Like, how are they getting to, this demographic and it is they're trying to create the backlash from the white boys to go out and fight and all that sort of stuff. So
I can tell you, my son is a gamer. My Black son is a gamer, and he will tell you in a heartbeat. I mean, he designs multiplayer games. There are people trolls coming into the game room, into the multiplayer game rooms, into the chat spaces, and they're looking for young white men. And he was telling me about that 2 years ago. Yeah, absolutely. It's a strategy. Absolutely. They're recruiting them almost like, when you look at the kind of the super out there Muslim groups, they were looking for young men in chat rooms as well for jihadist groups, but they're using the same strategy right now to raise up white nationalist young white men who are playing video games.
Did you also see the news story today? I mean, I guess I knew this, but I haven't been thinking about it because the media doesn't report on it. But there was a report out today that about Donald Trump's. So there's been all this, not research, but work done about background work about the amount of offenses and the penalties that have been given across the country for all of the similar or same offenses that Donald Trump. And so he's going to jail. And so they said basically that he knows that they're trying everything like what we're talking about with the boys, because he knows that if he doesn't win this election, that he's going to jail. Like, he's not going to get off with a slap on the wrist and so that all of it in itself, and the fact that Scott Jennings and all these Republican commentators are all stirring the pot so that there's a fight for when he doesn't win. So, initially I was looking at doing a HeartBeat show live on election day, and I got warned. I haven't shared that with you guys about not being out in public on that night because
Yeah, I've been warned too.
Yeah, I've been warned not to do anything, like to make sure that we're in our homes and stuff that night.
Yeah.
How crazy is that shit, right? Like, who would have thunk in the year 2024 we're having to worry about this kind of thing?
But 2020, I was warned too. So in my community in Thurston County, my husband was told by a police officer who worked for him that to not let his wife, because all the police know me because I walk our neighborhood all the time. They said, please tell your wife not to walk the week of the election because there's just rumors of bad actors out there. So I'm not surprised by that at all, actually.
Yeah. I've been also warned about Halloween, right? Like, what a great time to be out and do mayhem shortly before the election. You get to wear costumes and run out in the street and nobody will be looking at you.
What a time.
You know what my husband said, just speaking of that, of costumes, my husband and I had a long conversation about just what is it about Donald Trump and this particular version of Republicanism? Because it's not Republican to me. This is something different than Republican. It's a cult. Like this brand of whatever's happening is cultish. And my husband said something really interesting. He said, honey, people are looking for a place to belong. And for white folks of a particular ilk, they get to dress up and put on costumes and go to events. And I thought about, just what people wear when they go to Trump events. I mean, they're decked out. They've got hats on and gloves and T-shirts and shoes and all that. And he said, it's almost like a gang. Like, we did gang work a long time ago. When we first got married, we worked with gangs, and gangs were really just young men often who just didn't have family and didn't have community. And how much are these people drawn into community? It's a false community, and it's not a community that actually loves them. But cults often don't love people. Cults are about the power of one person or the power of a small group of people at the top. And it just made so much sense to me. People are desperately looking for community, and I think COVID really propelled us into that in a really different way. COVID took a piece of our humanity away, and I think some of us have been able to come back and find it, like our humanity, our communal spirit. But some people have not found it, and they are desperately seeking it. And the costumes and the fanfare and the anger. I mean, I look at people at his rallies, and they don't look like they're really listening because he's not really saying anything. But they get to be part of this thing.
Except,
trying to make
Erin, except they don't have transportation back.
I know.
Did you catch that?
Yes, but I have a friend who studies cults, though. And what she said is, I was not surprised, because what a cult leader, she has studied cults for the last 30 years. And she said, what a cult leader does is they do really extreme things. And so to leave people out in the desert, she said, I was not surprised by that, because it gives them this intense experience that they have together then, and he'll figure out a way to explain it. But she said, I was not surprised, actually, that's where he left them out there, because it, in a really sick way, it draws people even more into, oh, it wasn't Donald Trump's fault. It was somebody else on his team's fault. They should be fired. We came all the way out here for him. It drives them into community even more deeply.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew. Well, look, ladies, that's this week, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Can I share something that I shared it on TikTok, so you all probably have seen it, and then I shared a shorter version on Instagram. I just want to share something that I had this revelation yesterday, and I was in Spokane Valley, which is one of the whitest, most white nationalist regions of the state of Washington. In fact, we used to have a state representative there who was kicked out of the Republican Party, I think 5 years ago, because he had a whole manifesto to take that region of the state and turn it into a 51st state. That was his goal. Just wild. But I was there this week speaking at a conference, and last night I had this revelation, and it's just a suggestion that I have for people about how to move through the next couple weeks. Number one, shaming other people for not voting like you do. So we're going to vote for Kamala Harris, but shaming our friends and family. I would say I don't have any friends that are voting for Trump, but shaming people we know or shaming people on social media for not voting for Kamala is not effective. It's not going to change people's minds right now to shame them. All it will do is change how they see you and your relationship to them. So number one, don't shame in the next couple weeks. Number two, think about who in your world might speak to that person who is more like that person than you are. So if it's a white friend that you have, is there another white person who has a similar socioeconomic background, similar lived experience that they could go to and speak their language and just have a conversation with them? And then three, spend some time listening to people who are not voting like you and see if you can find some common ground. And if you can't, walk away. Walk away. Don't give your energy away. We need to conserve our energy right now. And I think it would be really easy in the next couple of weeks to just get into it with people on social media, to watch things that get us riled up. And we actually need our energy on November 7th and 8th and 9th and 10th and protect our peace. We need to protect our peace.
Thank you for saying that, Erin. I appreciate that because, yes, we do have not just a couple of weeks to the election, but then what's going to happen after it that we've got to contend with. Steph, did you have any final thoughts you wanted to share this evening before we sign off?
I think I agree with what Erin said. I think the only thing that I would add is, try to avoid the guilt of having to sever those connections, or, sort of love people with a long-handled spoon, as my grandmother said. Because, we are no longer having conversations about policy.
Yeah.
Like, these are very harmful, deadly positions that are being sort of touted out as policy platforms.
Yeah.
And so we don't have to agree to disagree with somebody that believes that we shouldn't exist, or we should have different rights than them, or be subjected, to oppression. And so I know there's a lot of guilt around that. And so try to, it's okay. It's okay to walk away.
Yep, I agree. Ladies, thank you for coming on this week again. Let's just continue to hold on to each other as we always do through our text messaging for our sanity. Be safe this week in everything that you do. Look over your shoulder, look around you, make sure that your families are protected. And to our audience who joined us this evening, thank you for being a part of this. Thank to Nate Miles for coming on and having this conversation with us. And so be safe, everyone out there. We look forward to seeing you all next week. Have a good week, everyone.
State Senator Twana Nobles has earned the trust of our community. As a mother with kids in public schools, she understands what working families need to thrive. That means increasing access to financial aid, expanding the working families tax credit so we can afford to live in our communities, and ensuring Washingtonians continue to have access to abortion. Re-elect Twana Nobles, trusted by the community, the champion we need. Paid for by Friends of